In a time when darkness covered the hearts of men and wickedness rose like smoke from the cities of the plain, one story stands out, disturbing, divine, and unforgettable. It's a tale where angels walked among sinners, fire fell from the heavens, and a family was torn between salvation and scandal. At the center of it all, Lot, a man who escaped the flames of Sodom, only to face a deeper fire in the shadows of a cave. What would drive daughters to commit the unthinkable with their own father? What can we learn from a story so raw, so real, and so rarely spoken of? Welcome to Hope Unshaken, where we uncover the hidden truths of Scripture that most are too afraid to tell. Before diving into our discussion, please remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell to stay informed of all our latest updates. Lot's earliest appearances in the Scriptures are recorded in the book of Genesis, beginning with chapter 11. The biblical account of Lot begins with some ambiguity regarding the origin and interpretation of his name. Various scholars propose that it may signify a covering or veil, hinting at the notion of concealing or presenting oneself appropriately before others. According to biblical accounts, after the death of his father, Lot departed from Ur of the Chaldeans, traveling to Haran alongside his grandfather Terah, his uncle Abraham, and Sarai. After Terah's passing, Abraham left Haran to journey towards Canaan, and Lot accompanied him. A severe famine forced Abraham and Lot to leave Canaan temporarily and settle in Egypt. However, due to deceit involving Pharaoh, Abraham and Sarai were expelled from Egypt, prompting Lot to return with them back to Canaan. During their time in Canaan, both Abraham and Lot prospered immensely. Their livestock and wealth increased significantly, eventually causing the land to become insufficient to sustain both their herds. This situation inevitably led to conflicts between their shepherds. The biblical narrative distinctly contrasts Abraham and Lot through the critical decisions each makes when confronted with life's opportunities and obstacles. Abraham's character is notably defined by his unwavering obedience and trust in the promises made by God. His faith deeply influences his decisions, positioning him as an exemplary figure who consistently prioritizes divine direction over personal ambitions and earthly comforts. Recall, for instance, the incident involving the 3 enigmatic visitors at Mamre. Abraham was resting at the entrance of his tent beneath the shade of Mamre's oaks when he suddenly became aware of 3 figures standing before him. The narrative implies these visitors possessed a supernatural essence, as Abraham immediately bowed down in reverence upon seeing them. He then exemplified remarkable hospitality, insisting they rest, offering water to cleanse their feet, and providing food to rejuvenate their strength. During this extraordinary visitation, Abraham and Sarah received startling yet transformative news. One of these visitors prophesied that Sarah, despite her advanced age, would bear a child by the same time the following year. This divine promise echoed an earlier assurance from God, who had already told Abraham that his descendants would be as countless as the stars in the heavens. The account of the visit to Mamre not only highlights Abraham's exceptional hospitality, but also reveals the depth and personal nature of the relationship between God and his faithful servant. Conversely, Lot increasingly succumbed to the allure of worldly temptations and was attracted to opportunities promising material prosperity. Due to these differing orientations, Abraham and Lot mutually decided to part ways. Demonstrating remarkable generosity and wisdom, Abraham allowed Lot the privilege of choosing first. Abraham's decision to separate from Lot intended to maintain harmony and avoid discord, underscores his profound spiritual maturity. It clearly demonstrates his commitment to peace and his deep desire to maintain communion with God, transcending material concerns. Lot selected the fertile plains of the Jordan Valley, stretching towards the Dead Sea, near the city of Sodom. Drawn to the area's beauty and productivity, Lot's decision, while logical from a human viewpoint, exposed his susceptibility to materialistic allurements. His choice contrasts sharply with Abraham's steadfast spiritual orientation. Following the separation, Lot established himself in Sodom, quickly integrating into local society and attaining notable social status. Yet the Bible vividly depicts the people of Sodom as profoundly wicked, a condition that troubled Lot greatly. The Apostle Peter in the New Testament recounts how Lot endured daily distress from the pervasive wickedness he observed. While residing in Sodom, conflict erupted when kings from Mesopotamia launched a campaign, defeating Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Zoar. During this invasion, Sodom was plundered, and many of its residents, including Lot, were captured. Upon learning of these events, Abraham swiftly assembled a rescue party. In a strategic nighttime attack, he successfully defeated the invading forces, reclaiming Lot, his family, and their possessions. This encounter notably includes Abraham's meeting with Melchizedek. Despite the conflict and dangers of Sodom, Lot chose to remain in the city. The biblical narrative proceeds to describe angelic visitors arriving in Sodom, a city characterized by pervasive disorder and moral corruption. Their presence highlights God's profound concern over humanity's wickedness, echoing the prophetic sentiment found in Jeremiah 23:24, emphasizing divine attention to the cries arising from injustice. This divine involvement in human affairs illustrates God's unwavering dedication to righteousness and his proactive stance against evil. Declaring his intention to thoroughly investigate the sins of Sodom, God reveals his commitment to justice and his categorical rejection of wickedness. Ultimately, deeply grieved by the city's rampant immorality, God resolves to bring destruction upon Sodom. The biblical narrative clearly emphasizes the moral corruption of the inhabitants of Sodom, notably evident in their reprehensible treatment of the angels sent by the Lord. The men of Sodom, in their sinful behavior, expressed an explicit desire for sexual relations with the visiting angels, highlighting one of the central reasons behind the city's impending destruction. Amidst this chaos, Lot attempted to diffuse the volatile situation through a highly controversial and morally questionable action, offering his own daughters to appease the aggressive crowd. This decision exposes Lot's compromised character and vividly illustrates the negative impact that living in such a corrupt environment had upon him. At this pivotal juncture, the biblical account turns to Abraham's brave intercession before the Lord, revealing his sincere search for divine justice and understanding. Recognizing the impending doom facing Sodom, Abraham boldly engaged God in dialogue, questioning whether he would spare the righteous along with the wicked. Abraham's daring intercession echoes the powerful message of James 5:16, underscoring that the earnest prayer of a righteous person holds great effectiveness and power. The narrative proceeds with a compelling exchange between Abraham and God, where Abraham persistently negotiates the conditions under which God might spare the city for the sake of the righteous within it. Psalm 86:15 aptly encapsulates this dynamic, declaring, "But you, Lord, are a compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness." This interaction highlights God's openness to the pleas of his faithful servants and his willingness to respond compassionately to persistent intercession. This account vividly portrays God's merciful nature, emphasizing the significance of steadfast persistence in pursuing justice and mercy. When God ultimately resolved to destroy the cities of the plain, including Sodom and Gomorrah, the scriptures recount a crucial moment. Prior to Sodom's destruction, Lot and his family were rescued by two angels dispatched by the Lord, a rescue driven by divine mercy and faithfulness to the covenant God had established with Abraham. As the inhabitants of Sodom aggressively attempted to seize the angels, the heavenly messengers inflicted blindness upon the attackers. Subsequently, the angels urgently instructed Lot to gather his family and leave the city immediately. Lot, hesitant to abandon Sodom, required direct physical intervention by the angels, who forcefully led him out. During this escape, Lot and his family were explicitly instructed not to look back. However, Lot's wife disobeyed this command, turning back towards Sodom, and was transformed into a pillar of salt as a result. The transformation of Lot's wife into a salt statue powerfully symbolizes the dire consequences that follow when divine instructions are ignored. Although Lot himself escaped immediate destruction, he was not shielded from the moral repercussions of his earlier choices. His decision to reside near Sodom exposed his family to profound moral degradation, underscoring the profound difficulty Lot faced in maintaining his moral and spiritual integrity amid pervasive societal corruption. The struggles faced by Lot resonate deeply with contemporary challenges encountered by Christians who often live within societies dominated by values contradictory to biblical teachings. Following their escape from Sodom, Lot and his two daughters initially relocated to a small town. However, due to ongoing fears for their safety, they ultimately sought refuge in a cave located in a remote mountainous region. This cautious approach highlights Lot's difficulty in placing complete trust in God's plan. Lot's reluctance to fully trust contrasts significantly with Abraham's unwavering faith throughout his journey, despite considerable uncertainties and difficulties. Lot's decision to shelter in a cave symbolizes a broader human tendency to isolate oneself in times of trouble. This cave likely represented more than merely physical shelter. It also served as a reflection of emotional and spiritual withdrawal. Such behavior invites us to consider how traumatic experiences affect individuals' capacity to engage fully with life and relationships. In this isolated and challenging setting, a deeply disturbing event took place. Lot's daughters, driven by their concern for preserving their family lineage and feeling isolated without prospects for marriage, formulated a troubling plan. They deliberately intoxicated their father, and acting without proper moral discernment, each engaged in intimate relations with Lot on consecutive nights, hoping to conceive children. From these incestuous encounters were born Moab and Ben-Ammi, ancestors of the Moabites and Ammonites respectively. These nations would later become significant adversaries to the Israelites throughout biblical history. Following these troubling events, the biblical narrative concerning Lot becomes sparse. The complexity and controversial nature of his relationship with his daughters following the destruction of Sodom is evident, yet Scripture provides no further clarity about the remainder of Lot's life. Whether he succeeded in rebuilding his existence or concluded his days in seclusion within the mountain cave remains uncertain. Notably, the Apostle Peter references Lot in his second epistle, 2 Peter 2:7-8, reiterating the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and emphasizing Lot's torment due to the city's wickedness. Similarly, in the Gospel of Luke, Jesus recalls Lot's story in an apocalyptic context, underscoring both the judgment upon Sodom and Gomorrah and the importance of vigilance and obedience to God in anticipation of the end times. The story of Lot provides profound lessons applicable to contemporary Christian living. Despite his proximity and opportunity to learn from Abraham, known as the father of faith, Lot chose to follow his own desires and perceptions rather than embracing the path of faith and divine guidance. This personal choice led to numerous hardships and lasting emotional scars for his family, serving as a stark reminder of the consequences inherent in making decisions based primarily on individual judgment rather than faith and obedience. The account of Sodom and Gomorrah emphasizes the necessity of ethical decision-making, particularly when facing societal pressures. Apostle Paul, writing to the Romans, encourages believers not to conform to worldly standards, but to experience transformation through a renewed mind. Romans 12:2. This teaching remains profoundly relevant today, encouraging Christians to uphold their faith and moral integrity despite external societal influences. The story of Lot and his daughters is not easy to hear. It's unsettling, it's raw. But it's real, and it's in the Bible for a reason. It reminds us that even after divine rescue, the battle with sin isn't over. That fear, isolation, and brokenness can still lead to tragic choices. But even here, in the ashes of Sodom and the silence of a cave, God's greater story moves forward. From this scandal came nations. From this darkness, the thread of redemption still continued. Perhaps this is a warning, or perhaps it's a whisper, that no matter how far humanity falls, God's plan cannot be stopped. Thank you for watching Hope Unshaken. If this message stirred something in you, leave a like, share it with someone who needs to hear the unfiltered truth of Scripture, and subscribe to join us as we uncover the Bible's most hidden, human, and holy stories. Until next time, stay rooted in truth and unshaken in faith,